Hello and good evening. Welcome back again. This is Grillenheimer, continuing the series about um, God is the same throughout the Bible, through the Old Testament and the New Testament. I believe this is part 3. I had an intro, I had Adam and Eve. This is now going to be Cain and Abel. In the background, I picked a Genesis game for Genesis. And based on the nature of Cain and Able, I picked an RPG, Final Fantasy 4. And because of my camera, it is flipped, which makes me flipped. Just kidding. Bad joke. Now, I guess that'll have to be your homework. I've got verses written down, but I don't have the verse to read. But this is just very general stuff. This is going to be very quick. Now what happened with Cain and Abel? Cain killed Abel. Why? Well, God started the sacrifice. He had to clothe Adam and Eve, and because of that, he obviously had to sacrifice an animal in order to clothe them. That was the first sacrifice. And with that blood, it covered them and it covered their sins, so they could still walk with him when he was in the garden, on earth. He was not going to show up as much. They were expelled from the garden, and they began to have a life. That's hammy. And which started the sacrificial worship. Well, Abel, his profession, Abel was a shepherd. Cain was a farmer. He was a tiller of the ground. It lets us know that in Genesis 4 verse 3. Now, some people say, well, Cain didn't offer a live animal. A live animal is a true sacrifice. You need the blood to have a real sacrifice. No, the Bible does say it was the fruit of the ground, and that was an appropriate sacrifice for Cain to do, because that's what he did. He should have given his best, not just the firstlings, which is what my Bible calls it. He should have given the Lord his best grains and praised the Lord. Praised him with his offering. But as in Genesis 4 verse 5 tells us, of his offering, Cain had no regard for it. He didn't care. His attitude was in the wrong place to give to the Lord. He it didn't sound like he didn't care. It was like, the way I read this, and I could be wrong, that he didn't have any love for God. He didn't have, because he probably was thinking, well, I'm having to give up some of my food. I'm having to give up some of my grain. Why should I give up my grain for him? Is kind of what I'm getting from this. You go to a scholar, you go to someone who's been in seminary, they might be able to tell you a lot more better. Oh heavens. Might be able to explain this that makes a little more sense than just me rambling. But at the same time, what he was offering was appropriate, but his heart was in the wrong place. And so God had a talk with Cain, a talk with Cain, about his countenance, and it was all about his countenance and that he was down. And I've read that verse before in a previous video. All this stuff is coming back, folks. All of this is coming back. And I want to say that was 4 verse 6 or 7. I don't have this written down. I apologize. And so what we know the story. What happens? Well, Cain and Abel go out to the fields. Cain tells Abel what God told him. Well, and then he kills Abel. It's the first written murder in the Bible. And it's so bad when God confronts Cain about this, he can hear Abel's blood pretty much screaming from the ground, from where he killed him, and just left his brother's body there. I mean, Cain didn't care a whit about anybody or anything from the sounds of it. He didn't care about God. He didn't care about the sacrifice, the offering. He didn't care about his brother. It seems like Cain was full of hate. And before Cain kills his brother, God warned him, your countenance is down. Sin is all around you. You have to master this. And he warned him, you have to be master of this. He didn't want to master it. He let it master him. And because he lacked the righteousness and the ability to master his emotions, he killed his own brother. Out of envy, out of jealousy, out of hatred, out of everything. And it's a really terrible story. Originally, my notes were really concerning about the animal sacrifice was better over the other sacrifice, but then I realized and read that Cain's offering was appropriate. It was fine. It was his heart was in the wrong place. So I'm not going over those notes on here. But what is the point of this? What did God do? Oh, well, God of the Old Testament, oh, he's evil, he's mean. He killed Cain and offed with him. Oh, gosh, yeah, he killed Cain. A magical beast war rock appeared in the air and crunched him, and he was gone forever. No, he didn't kill Cain. He separated Cain even more from his own parents and wherever they were farming, and then he marked Cain. So to make sure nobody would kill him. He made Cain safe from being killed from anybody else of that collective or the neighboring villages. And in turn, he made it harder for Cain to farm. Cain was already a farmer. He may have been the first, well, maybe not the first farmer, but close to it. Okay? And if they were already exiled from the garden, and then he makes it harder for Cain to even farm, he's making it harder for Cain just to simply live. And of course, from his line comes Enoch. But in a way, God gave grace on Cain because he let him live. He didn't kill Cain. There had already been one murder. Let's look at this on the flip side. Abel. We know through his sacrifice, he picked the fattest lamb, the fattest animal, the best animal. He was going to give the best sacrifice to God, so it already sounds like he loved God. He loved life. He loved what he did. He was a wonderful shepherd. He sounds like he was a I lost my wording, that he was a fair, maybe not fair is the wrong word, um, wise shepherd. Um, what does shepherding teach us? A shepherd has control of a lot of animals. You're controlling those animals in a herd. Well, when you're trying to control animals, wild or tame or otherwise, it takes a lot of patience. Yeah, it takes a patience to farm, but you're only doing one thing over and over and over again. Whether you're tilling the ground or pulling the fruit of your efforts out of the ground, either way is excruciating work. But dealing with the animals helps you also to be able to learn to control your own emotions. Because if you let your emotions fly when you have animals around you, your animals can feel your emotions. They're keen on that. No matter what animal you're dealing with, and they can turn on you, and they can turn wild in a heartbeat. And so Abel mastered his emotions. He mastered, I won't say sin, because he may or may not have been without sin. We don't know. But he was favored by God because he gave a good sacrifice. His heart was in it. He lifted God up. He praised God with his sacrifice and his offering. Okay? So, therefore, when Cain died, when I'm getting their names mixed up, when Abel gave his offering, he loved God. He was praising God. He gave his best to God. And he spilled the blood of that lamb. And what happened? He was brought back to God. Yeah, the Bible's a little bit descriptive about saying his blood was screaming out of the ground or whatever. But death, now for the Old Testament, before Christ, it was a little different. But from what we understand from a lot of near-death experiences, death is like just walking through a door. Once you're dead, you're alive, but you don't feel anything. The pain is gone. But you retain you. You retain your individuality. You're not lost in a sea of nothingness. You're not just there. Things happen quickly. The sense of time is almost gone. Things can last forever, but be in the blink of an eye. Some of the accounts are very wonderful and very strange and very hard to believe. But I think in that regard, and let's just say, I'm not saying this is what happened, but when Abel was killed, he was brought back to God, and God knew it. So when he confronted Cain, God already knew Cain killed Abel. Him asking where your brother is was rhetorical, for God already knew the answer. So, what happened? How did God deal with this? He gave grace to Cain. He didn't kill him. He marked him and made sure that he would be kept safe. But he made his life harder. And unfortunately, we don't know the rest of his story. Now, do we? No, not really. But Abel loved God, gave a sacrifice, went back to God. That's a beautiful story in itself. That Cain was the instrument that brought Abel to God. So, with that, from the Old Testament to the New Testament, we need to remember to glorify God in our good times, in our bad times, in our peaks and our valleys. So remember that when you're at your worst, pray. Don't pray for things. Don't pray for stuff. Don't pray for money. Have your heart in the right spot. And when the Spirit overtakes you, you know what to ask for. You know what to say. He helps you to pray and knows almost your prayers before you say them. So I might continue this series, just another video, 2 or more, or 4 or so. We'll see how this goes. So thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time. Have a great night.